This movie will certainly leave you with a bad taste in your mouth. Let's talk about it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another one of my movie reviews. Today we are talking about the new slasher film from Eli Roth called Thanksgiving, right in time for Thanksgiving.
It is going to be a very happy Thanksgiving.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty details, this is your spoiler warning, as I will be talking about various kills and the twists and the plot overall, so make sure you go watch the movie first and then come back to this. Alright, so first of all, this movie is directed by Eli Roth, and I'm not super familiar with his work if I'm being honest, but from what I've heard, he's very into gore and campy horror, and that's very much what this movie is. It was super fun to watch, super violent, very bloody, but overall just a great time. And after watching pretty lackluster movies in the past couple of months, including Five Nights at Freddy's, this was very, very refreshing to see. Alright, so right off the bat, the concept is awesome. When I think of Thanksgiving, I never think of anything spooky, anything horror related, because we just got off of Halloween. So this is a great niche area to make some horror movies. It makes me kind of want a horror movie for every big holiday like Easter or Valentine's Day or something. I think the killer's outfit was also really awesome. Going into the movie, I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I was just purely going off of the poster, and I thought this movie was going to be about actual pilgrims at first, but no, it was just like a pilgrim outfit. And at one point, the mask that the killer was wearing got half melted off, and I really wish he kept that through the whole thing. I don't know why they made the decision for him to just reuse another new mask. Also, this movie was just the definition of unserious. You just have to go into it with kind of lower expectations, because first of all, it is a horror movie, which is kind of annoying because I wish horror movies would care a little bit more about their plots, but this is another one of those movies where you kind of just have to ignore a bunch of plot holes and ignore the high school kids' personalities, as they're super not realistic and they just all have to be kind of dumb for these deaths to occur. And if you can ignore those parts, this movie was super funny. Unless you don't like gore, which I don't even know why you would watch this movie. This movie also reminds me of a lot of other slasher films, which is good because it is part of the slasher genre, but it actually did feel pretty unique. It was like a combination of scenes from Texas Chainsaw, Scream, and even a little bit of Terrifier, although I think it's slightly less intense than Terrifier, and slightly less smart than Scream, and slightly less cinematic than Texas Chainsaw. But besides that, it's a kind of a combination of all of that. Also, the movie doesn't super heavily rely on jump scares, but there were some. I would say half of them didn't work for me, as they were really predictable, but then there were some that actually freaked me out. They were the kinds of jump scares that would just happen without any kind of music buildup or any fake out. It just happened, and those were pretty effective. And of course, the big part of the movie were the kills. They were super bloody, and we got to see guts, and we got to see brains, and the whole shebang. Half of them were not super original, which is fine because we got some of them that were super unique. Like, for example, I think for me at least, I've been very desensitized to just decapitation or head twists or just seeing guts. I think we've seen that in a lot of horror movies. But I will name a few of my favorite ones that I saw. So right off the bat, the first victim, who was the food service worker, her death was so funny. First of all, it was very creative how the killer dumped her into water and then put her on the freezing door of the fridge, and then she got like frostbite and she was stuck there for a second. That was super gross. And then the fact that she tried to go into the dumpster and then she got decapitated because the lid closed on her, which I don't know how that would actually work in real life, but it was super funny and everyone in my theater laughed at that death. I also thought the very beginning, when the whole Black Friday thing happened, which is pretty ingenious, by the way. I thought when the lady got her hair stuck and then her scalp pulled off, I was like, that was super gross. I also don't know how realistic that would be in real life, but that was one of the cooler scenes. Also, this one was kind of random when they were at the parade and then the boat rocked forward and then the stake went through the guy's face. That was so disgusting. You just saw like bits of his nose just sticking out. And then this one's slightly more simple in concept, but the trampoline death was something I've never really thought about. Like, of course, if a killer were to stick a knife or if there's something sharp underneath the trampoline, you would just absolutely get destroyed from that. And then, of course, the best death and the most disgusting death I've seen in a while was when the stepmom was burned alive, baked alive, and then she was served on the plate as a turkey. First of all, the whole scene when she was trying to escape was probably the best part of the movie. It was very intense, and we were rooting for her, and she was almost out of the house, and then she finally gets pulled right back in and then becomes the turkey for the feast. And then the fact that the killer tried to feed a part of her to her husband, it was just so disgusting, and I don't blame him for throwing up while he was gagged.
Let's eat.
I probably will never see turkey the same way after this movie. And then finally, the big twist at the end, it's revealed that the killer was the sheriff the whole time. And I was pretty disappointed by this twist because I was almost convinced that there were two killers the whole time. I didn't predict that the sheriff was the killer until I saw him laying on the ground, and I was like, okay, it's probably him and then one of the boyfriends, either Bobby or Ryan, because they kind of just disappeared for the second half of the movie. So I was like, that's really suspicious. It might have been one of them, but then they just don't explain why they were gone the whole time. And so that was pretty disappointing. And there were times that it just didn't make sense that it would be the sheriff. We essentially just have to believe that teleportation exists in this universe because he clearly was in two places at once. When they were at the high school, he was clearly outside talking to his buddy, but then he ended up somehow changing really fast, going inside of the school, then coming right back outside in time to talk to the main girl. I was just like, this is just not possible, and it makes predicting who the killer is a little bit frustrating because you're trying to figure out with the characters who could be the killer, but then all these defying physics and time and space just kind of makes it ridiculous. Also, his whole motivation was explained because his wife was murdered in the Black Friday rush, and so now he's trying to kill the people responsible, but that is just, como dices, a reach. I think it really didn't even make sense why he was trying to kill the teenagers, because he started off killing some randos, but then he pivoted to the main group. I'm like, if you were trying to kill the people responsible for your wife's death, maybe just target everyone in the whole town at that point. I don't know. Just, again, this movie was super unserious, so I just had to ignore the whole explanation. But yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun watching a bunch of guts spill, especially for a holiday that I don't associate with horror. So overall, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. What did you guys think of the movie? Let me know your favorite kills down in the comments. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on my future movie reviews. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone.